Alright everybody, let me explain in detail what sentence parts are all about and use them in this video. Now keep in mind, we're talking about creating sentences here, not paragraphs. These are the kind of sentences that show up in work world writing. And when we use sentence parts to make sentences, our grammar mistakes are going to go down. That's another bonus. Alright, let's dive in and take a look.
Okay, as I said in the other video, there's only 4 sentence parts to learn, so that's pretty easy. And we're going to start with some basic punctuation, just the comma, to separate these sentence parts. Now remember, I said in Greek, they mean little knives, so you can imagine a Greek person with these knives, commas, cutting the sentence into pieces, and there's 4 different parts to learn. Now, I need a topic to write about, so I'm going to write about these wolves right here. And these wolves are just fishing for salmon in a river, and they catch some fish. And the original article is here. I'll just open it really quickly. And so in the original article, Marika McKenzie posts the video and writes a little bit about it, and we will look at her writing a little later. So in the meantime, I'm going to write about this video. I'm going to create one sentence and teach you the sentence parts as I go. So here we go. Sentence part number 1. It's the most important part. It's called a main. Every sentence has a main part, and we're going to underline this part so that it pops out and we can see it really clearly. Okay, so main parts are actually a complete sentence. In other words, they make complete sense on their own. All right, every sentence has to have a main part. So every sentence in the English language must have a main part in it. And lastly, sentences can have a maximum of 2 main parts, but no more. Otherwise, it would be called a run-on. So let's create a main sentence and we'll underline it, okay? Wolves hunt salmon to survive. That's a sentence. It makes perfect sense. So we can underline it. That's a main sentence right there. Okay, so that's part number 1. Part number 2 is an intro part. Some sentences can have intros, and we're going to color them blue, right? And we're going to use a comma to begin with to separate them. Okay, intro parts have extra helpful information at the start of the sentence, but intro parts do not make sense on their own. The main parts do. Okay, so let's add an intro to our sentence. As seen in this video, wolves hunt salmon to survive. As seen in this video, there's a comma, it's separating it off, and it's creating 2 parts. Now, this part, as seen in this video, it doesn't make sense on its own. Imagine calling somebody on the phone, and the first thing you say to them is, as seen in this video. What's going on, right? It doesn't make sense. But the other part of the sentence, the main part, you could call somebody and just say to them, wolves hunt salmon to survive. They might say, oh, okay, I didn't know that. All right, so I can tell the difference between an intro and a main part. The third possible part is an interruption. We're going to color these parts red. Okay, interruptions, again, they're extra helpful information that interrupt other parts. Now, interruptions most often will interrupt the main part of the sentence, but they technically can interrupt any part. An interruption can interrupt an intro. You can actually interrupt an interruption if you really want, or the last part, but often it's just the main part that's being interrupted. Okay, and again, these parts do not make sense on their own. Let's add an interruption to our sentence. As seen in this video, wolves in British Columbia hunt salmon to survive. So again, you can see my knives cutting my main sentence and inserting or interrupting myself to explain where the wolves live. All right, last part already. Here we go, only 4 parts. Orange add-ons. Add-ons are orange. Extra helpful information at the end of a sentence. Really, add-ons are the opposite of intros. Intros are blue at the start, add-ons are orange at the end, but really they're both extra helpful information that don't make sense on their own. All right, let's add an add-on to our sentence. As seen in this video, wolves in British Columbia hunt salmon to survive with relative ease. So there you see a sentence with all 4 parts in it. And as you add parts, the sentence grows in length and it grows in complexity. It's harder and harder to find that main sentence, your main point. And so I would be careful about that. I don't think I would create sentences very often with all 4 parts. I might remove some of these parts. Like maybe I won't say the interruption, but I'll keep the intro and the add-on. As seen in this video, wolves hunt salmon to survive with relative ease. So I can play around and get artistic with how I create sentences, and these colors and underlining kind of helps that happen. Now let's take a look at Marika's article. Okay, as a side note, I see that Marika has some hyperlinks in her article, which is what real writers in the work world use. This is to cite her writing. To prove what she's saying is true, she uses hyperlinks to help people find that information and learn more. I'm going to remove them just because we don't need them for this assignment, but you are going to use hyperlinks when you cite your information in your article that you write for me. Okay, let's look at her sentences. Got one. Wow, that's a short sentence to start with, right? 2-word sentence. It's very artistic. She's referring to the wolves. But if I was going to identify the sentence parts, I'd have to underline it. There's only one part there, and it has to be a main part. It's a main sentence. Next sentence. In this video of the week, watch as a wolf makes salmon fishing look dead simple. All right, I see the knife, I see the comma, I have 2 parts. Which part is which? And I always try to find the main part first. So I can just start by reading these pieces all by themselves, imagining I'm calling somebody on the phone. Hello, in this video of the week. What? That doesn't make sense. That's not I can't just say that. So that means that is not a full sentence. It's an introduction to this full sentence right here, which does make sense on its own. Next sentence. The wolf's fishing behavior, which is rare and largely undocumented, was caught on a remote camera set up in the Great Bear Rainforest on British Columbia's central coast. Wow, I've got several things going on. I have lots of commas in here. I've got a part here, another part here, another 2 part, 3. I got 4 parts. Okay, what's going on? So I can start ignoring some parts, because in this sentence up here, I can kind of ignore this part and my sentence still works over here. So what if I ignore this part? Maybe it's an intro. I start reading right here. Which is rare and largely undocumented was caught on a... No, that doesn't make sense. So I don't think that's an intro. What if I cut this part out and don't read this part? The wolf's fishing behavior was caught on a remote camera set up. That works. That means this is probably an interruption, something that's happening in the middle of a sentence, and those are red. Interruption was caught on a remote camera, and then there's another comma or knife here, and Marika is using an add-on. I know it's an add-on because on British Columbia's central coast is not a full sentence. It's extra information at the end. The environmental group Pacific Wild captured the phenomenon on camera. Okay, there's nothing going on in that sentence as far as commas or knives. It's just a full sentence. It makes great sense. Now, you might be tempted to add a comma if you were writing it, but Marika didn't. She thought everything was important, so it's all part of the main part, or one sentence. Okay, last sentence. In an interview with the Globe and Mail earlier this week, Pacific Wild President Ian McAllister said the camera has allowed him to see more wolves fishing than he has observed in 20 years of field work. 1 comma, 1 knife, separating the sentence into pieces. And I think if you read it carefully, you'll find this is an introduction. It doesn't make sense on its own, and this part does make sense. There you go. We've identified the sentence parts in a few paragraphs. You'll notice the most common feature are the underlined main parts, just little bits of color. That's how I want you to write in, forever. From now on, you should focus on the main part of your sentence, the black underlined part, and add little bits of color just to add some character to your sentences. Now here's what's important. After you write something, you should try to color your own writing. And if you cannot color your writing, you probably have grammar mistakes in it. But if you can color your writing, just like we did here, there's a good chance you don't have grammar mistakes. And so finding these sentence parts really does help remove grammar errors. Okay, now it's time for you to color. So all of this information I've put into a PowerPoint file, everything I've explained in the video so far. And in this next slide, I say, try to identify the main, the intro, the interruption down below on these slides below. And as you find these parts, the mains, and as you're coloring things, I want you to try in your head to explain the punctuation. So if you're turning something blue in your head, don't say this is blue, but you can say this is an introduction to my main part of my sentence. And so I see the comma separating it off. So that's what I want you to do. Talk to yourself as you color and underline. Also, the slides below are labeled as easy and hard. Once you get to the hard ones, and if you know how to do them without my help, then you're going to be ready to take that sentence parts test. So let's look at some slides here. Here's the first one. You can right-click any of these links and it'll take you to the original article with the video. But I want you to come in here and highlight the parts of the sentence and identify them just like this: mains, intros, interruptions, and add-ons. Now, after you've done it, you can look at my answers to see if you're right. I give you a picture of how I did it. And if you need it, especially if you get something wrong, you should click on the video and watch it where I explain in detail how I discovered each sentence part. Now, obviously, you can just cheat on this assignment. You can just look at my picture first and then go and highlight everything and get it all right. But you're not going to learn anything. And you have a sentence parts test coming up where you're not going to be able to look at my answers first. You're also required to color your article that you're going to do for me, and for your final writing project, you're going to use sentence parts. And so you yourself need to learn this really clearly so that you can be successful in the rest of the course. But here's some easy ones, easy, and then you get to some hard ones. And then, yeah, if you can do these without my answer key and get them right, then you know that you're ready for the next step. Okay, thanks for listening. We'll talk to you soon.